Hi, my name is Vanessa Bjorne, and today I will be teaching you how to make stamps out of oven-baked clay. So the idea I have for this is stuff for packaging for projects I've been working on. So first off, I will show you some of the items that you need. So the first thing that you need is, well, I'm using this oven-baked clay. It's a really big package. You do not need this much. You honestly need a little bit depending on how much you want to make. I just have a lot because I use this for other things. And some other tools you need, well, it's more so optional, but I use a bunch of these guys. They're a bunch of sculpting tools that I got a really long time ago, and they're not really necessary. Even just like a little knife, pocket knife, kitchen knife would work, or if you got this from the kit, this would also be something you can use. But like I said, it's really simple, so you don't need anything way too complex. And then for later, with the actual inking part, you can either use some of the printmaking ink that we got in class, or you can use acrylic paint. I have some really cheap acrylic paint that I got on sale at an art store quite a while ago. And you obviously need a surface. I have like an old cutting board that is covered in paint that you can use because you are using something sharp. You don't want to mark any tables or anything. And once you have all that, we can start the setup. So I'm going to get everything set up and then I will kind of show you stuff there. One sec. Okay, so the first thing we're going to want to do is get out a chunk of the clay, and you want to knead it out because it's pretty hard when you first pull it out, and then roll it out till it's pretty even all around, and then stick it on your cutting surface. So here's mine. It's not in a pretty shape or anything, it's just kind of in a blob, but we want to try to keep it as flat as possible so that in the end the finished product will translate very well. So what I'm going for here is a little thank you note to put on packages. So as we know in relief printing, when we have letters, you want to put them in backwards, but the thing with this clay that you can do is you can just cut completely through so that you don't need to worry about reversing it, because then once you have the whole thing, when you bake it, you can use either side to stamp. So if you cut it out completely right side up, then you will just be able to use the side that was touching the plate to stamp. So you don't need to worry about that. Depends on how you want to do it. If you want a thicker version of this, then you might want to do a reversed if you just want to cut it out halfway through or all the way through. It's really up to preference. Right now I'm just making a thin one. Just keep it simple. So here, I'm going to change the position of the camera so that you can see me cut, and then I'll show you it when it's done, and we'll clean up the edges and everything. Okay, so I went and carved out a TNH already using this end of this tool. As you can see here are some scraps, and there is texture on each of the letters so far since I am just going and digging out. You can for sure go back and smooth them out if you want it to be like that, but also you can leave texture in if you want to give your stamp a little bit of like a uniqueness to it. It's all up to the creator and what you want to convey in your work. So I'm going to go ahead and off camera continue and cut out the rest of the design on here and then show you when this is all completed, and I will explain what to do next after. Okay, so the oven baked clay I got cooks at 275 for 15 minutes. So I should have said earlier, a good idea is to start preheating the oven before you start making your clay, depending on how long you're going to spend. You don't want the oven to just be warm for a while, so it's up to you whenever to turn it on. But so once you're done on your cutting surface and you have your stamps all laid out, go ahead and get some kind of pan. I just use this circle one. So at the top here, it's reversed because it's in the camera, but I have my little thank you stamp here. And so the thank you stamp is a subtractive because you're taking away, and then I went ahead and made an additive stamp. So it's kind of hard to see on camera because you can't actually like pick up on it too well, but here it's pretty simple. So I did a little cat head and then a V, since a lot of my side little sculpting pin brand is a lot of cats. I put a cat and then a V for my first name, Vanessa. So once you do the additive, you do have to be careful with reversing, because you're not you can't just color one side like on this. You have to color the actual, like on here for example, the cat and the V. So you do have to make sure that your letters are reversed so that when you stamp, your whole thing's not backwards. With the V, it's not a big deal because it's a V, they're pretty symmetrical. And for this one, obviously I went and tried to cut it out as nice as possible. Kind of, it's a little off, but I don't really mind that. I don't mind that style, just kind of a little messy. But then with this, you can just honestly kind of, to save as much clay as you want, cut as close to the shapes, because then you save stuff and you're not going to be stamping the background. You're only going to be stamping what's in the foreground. So that's how you have that. So my oven is almost done preheating, so I'm going to go ahead and shove this in there for 15 minutes, and then I will show you how these work. Okay, so now after your pieces have done baking in the oven, you will have harder pieces. These are still a little bit flimsy. When it comes to the stamps, I don't mind keeping them a little flimsy. When it comes to actual pendant making, I usually let them, harden, because you want them to be durable. So here I'll show the 3 I made. So this is the main one we were talking about. So this is the front too, it's backwards because it's a camera, and then this is the side that we will be painting on. So this is right side too. So once you paint it and you stamp it, it will have everything that is not cut out a color. So you can do any color. And so that was subtractive, and then here was the additive. So here's the little cat shape and then the V. We will just be painting the cat shape and the V. And then this is a separate one I made. So this isn't really a stamp, but I actually made it as a stencil. So I like making little cat pens, so I thought that I wanted to make like a mini series. So I wanted them all to be kind of the same shape. So once you get your clay laid out, you can layer this guy on top and then just use your knife to etch around it. And then once you peel all the stuff you're not using off, you'll be left with a bunch of these little kitties. So I decided to make this along with these since I was sitting down and making them. Like, let's see. Usually mine are shaped differently just because I like kind of like the uniqueness of how individual ones look. So these guys are, I'll show you a few of them. Like these guys are from the little fruit series. This little orange guy, a little strawberry, and they're all pins. So when I bake it, I also bake the pin backing into it, so it's really stable. These are really sturdy. I've drop tested them and they don't break. I also have these guys. A lot of them are different. They're just little colorful cats. They're all unique little guys. So yeah, that's kind of why I made the little stencil, was so that I could make a series of like clean identical looking ones instead of less of the diverse handmade look. So I'm going to go ahead and set up for the stamping of these. So I'm going to get that ready and then I'm going to show you how it works. Okay, so the first stamp we're going to be looking at is the additive one. So the one with the cat and the V on top. As you can see, I've already experimented with it a little bit to see if placing the stamp on top of the paper or the paper on top of the stamp would be better. Since the stamp does have a bit of texture to it, since the cat and the V are not 100% flattened, I learned that it would be better for the translation to put the paper on top of the cat and the V so that you can kind of smooth it out and make sure you capture all the shapes that you need to. So once you get all your paint added onto, I just used a cheap acrylic for this one. I put this down on the flat surface and then I take my paper, and then you just want to lay your paper on and then kind of slightly press down. You will be able to see the paint translate over. So you just keep pressing. You want to make sure you're able to grab every part of the rays that you can. You'll keep going. Like I said, you might need to experiment a little bit to see which method works best with your stamp. But for this one, under and press. Different colors also translate differently. Different materials for the paint work differently. So this is like an acrylic, so it works one way compared to if we were to use the actual printmaking ink. So let's see. This guy should be good to go. So let's see if it translated okay. You see some of the texture is a little blocky and it is not perfect, but I kind of like that it's a little bit messy. So when this dries, you can go in with a pen and you can draw on it. Like what I like to do is once I make my stamp and a little cat head, I'll go in and give it a little face, make it a little bit cute. But yeah, something small like this would be fun for like the back of a card. So if I fold this forward, I'll be able to put the front with a little thank you note, and then it'll be a thank you card. So here, let me go and set up for the actual thank you front of the card video, and then I will get right to showing you. Okay, so next we're going to be doing the completely cut out thank you one. So the side you want to add your paint to is the reverse side. So that looks normal because, you know, the camera flips it around, but you want to put it on the reverse side so that when you stamp it, it says thank you in the correct way, not reverse when you look at it on your paper. So with these, once again, you want to experiment, see which translates better, either stamping this down on top of the paper or rubbing the paper down on top of the stamp. So rubbing the paper down on top of the stamp has worked a lot better for me. So here we're just going to grab a little piece of our paper. Demonstration, we have the stamp down here, and then we will place the paper on top of the stamp. So here I'm just going to start rubbing it out like we do with our prints. So with these, you really want to make sure you get in there because it is hand sculpted, so it is not super 100% flat. There's always going to be a little bit difference. Let's see. So you'll see it translate through a little bit. Hopefully you have it. Sometimes it's okay to flip it over so that you see the stamp, so that you can also just go and press in every little section to make sure that the stamp has translated its ink onto the paper for you. And be a little careful because I think I just got a little bit of ink on this side. And these stamps will look dirty very quick, but you can rinse them underwater. That is a-okay. So we have this here, and then all we need to do is go and peel the stamp off. And then if you look here, it is not 100% perfect, but it translated. Sometimes it takes a few tries and a couple different kind of like different paints translate better. This is just a cheap acrylic, so obviously it's not going to be that pretty. So let me try this with something better, and then I will be right back. Okay, so we already went over our additive stamp, and I showed a video of that. And then off camera for a while, I was messing around with our subtractive stamp. As you can see, he is quite dirty now. This guy was a little bit tricky, I will be honest. It is because he is not completely flat. So I went through with the different types of paint. So I used the cheap acrylic, and then I went and used the actual Black Akuta, the Printmaking ink. And this guy's translation was okay. I'll give it that. So as we saw, the additive turned out like this. Like, it's pretty straightforward, it's cute, it's not, you know, perfect. I do like kind of like a little handmade feeling, so I don't really mind this one being a little bit wonky. And then the subtractive ended up kind of turning out like this is one of them. It is not perfect at all. It is pretty messy indeed. And then I have over here, this one was the Kua ink. It is like this. So these did not translate as good as I thought they would, but you know what, just a lot of experimenting, trying, and I guess I'll just probably make another one and keep trying again. But yeah, so that's basically the simple steps on how to make this. Trial and error is a big part of learning. I make these and I'm still learning. I think, like, when I made the thank you one, I thought I flattened it out completely, but I obviously did not. So it's a little bit difficult to translate. But also, if you have a stamp that's a little wonky, you know, once it dries, you can go in with ink and or like pens, microns, whatever you want, and kind of draw on it, because that's what I think I'm gonna try to do with these at least, like I have a white gel pen, I can go in and make the letters, you know, pop a little better. It's kind of just a game of learning, so I hope this taught you something at least, and I hope you try it out. My video skills are not the best, so if I did not explain something well enough, you can feel free to ask me, and I will try to explain it the best I can. I am no expert. I am still constantly learning as I go, but I hope it was helpful. I really do. Thank you so much for watching, and I hope you have a good rest of your day and forever.